welcome everybody. This is Notus and Friends episode 1. It's been a long time coming. On the various platforms that we have, they've asked us to do, to produce more and more content. The more we release, the more they ask for, and it's all types of different things, right? So I sat here for a while trying to figure out what type of podcasts do we even do. Do we create 4 different podcasts, one to talk about radiation, one to talk about health, one to talk about art, one to talk about life? It didn't really make sense. So we came up with Notus and Friends, and I think it's pretty sweet. And I got my friend Alex here, and I think he's one of my favorite people. It's not that I think, he's most definitely one of my favorite people. And, I don't think the point of this too was also to bring any direct, specific expertise to the table. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, Alex. It's like there could be, a lot of people will be like, well, why do you want to interview me? And it's just, a lot about life. How do you know a lot about life at your age, right? And I think maybe that's a good way to start to open into this. How do you feel that you got where you are right now to the point where we're here giving people basically what they've asked us for? Did you ever see yourself in a position where people would actually be asking you for advice or guidance, or even that you'd ever be in a position to give it to them?
Definitely not on camera and or via a podcast, right? Because I grew up in a world with no computers, grade 5, I guess. Our first camera was kind of implemented into the library, right, at school. So that's kind of where it started. And from there, so no, to directly answer your question, no, absolutely not, I guess from a younger age, I've always been pretty open and have resonated with other people. So I've had the opportunity to be there for others. But never in this kind of context. So
I still find it a very strange thing, having people reach out to you, for advice, and there's always that part of you saying, well, why should they listen to me? There's that self-doubt almost, I don't know if that's true with you. I feel that I know a lot of truth, but am I the appropriate person for someone to be reaching out to?
Mm-hmm.
Just there's that thought, isn't there somebody better? And this comes up a lot in life too, and it's sort of what we were talking about earlier. Why should I expect some other platform to exist, to give people what they're asking from us directly, mm-hmm. right? So it becomes, I guess, just accepting the position that you're at, and even though we're not necessarily experts in anything particularly, there still is people who are looking to get to the level that we're at somehow, some way. Maybe it's just in mindset, maybe it's in money, maybe it's in strategy, maybe it's in even being able to see a dream, that you think will actually get you where you need to go. I'm not sure. There's a lot of people out there giving very specific information. I don't find it's helping. There's people like Jordan Peterson out there, for instance, who is a specialist, but he's come onto the mainstream because he's talking about all these other different life things that affect everybody. And I don't know, it's the generalization, it's becoming more important than the specialization, maybe because everyone's so lost, right?
Yeah.
You go into a specialty of any kind. We're not talking about work here either, guys. Right? You could be talking about business. You get caught up in sales, and you lose the whole forest in what you're doing here and everything. Mm-hmm. So, I feel that the trend out there is really looking for answers on how to become fulfilled, and that's definitely kind of where I feel you come into it. We were talking earlier. Right now, you're in a position where you don't need any more money per se to do the next step, mm-hmm. right? You're at your next step, right? Where you're in a more spiritual phase of communicating to other people and helping other people. You just shared something with me where the purpose, or sorry, the true love is the love of giving, not the love of receiving, right? That sort of aspect, So
yeah, I feel like this being my very first podcast or broadcast or whatever happens to be, I should share a little bit about me and where I came from and how I got to where I am today, right? Kind of a Coles Notes version of it. So I was born and raised in Windsor, Ontario, and grew up in the good family, the traditional. My dad was the president of a church. He met my mom here, got married, fell in love. He came from war-torn Palestine, right? So my uncle and him decided to start this church and kind of build a community and kind of giving everything to God and putting him first place in all of their affairs, right? Which was nice. So I grew up in that spiritually sound or foundation of life, right? So more than a kid could really ask for or know. I didn't know really anything other than that, so I grew up in this house and I had a loving brother and sister and mom and family, and we were all pretty tight knit, right? So I grew up and eventually, in my early teenage years, gravitated towards music. So I picked up the trombone, and I was naturally talented at that. So I was playing semi-professionally in the city at 15, 16, playing in university bands in my mid-teens, and eventually went to the University of Toronto on a partial scholarship, right? Did that for a little bit, came back to Windsor, decided I didn't really want to do all of that, I guess, with my life, and after working in the real world, if you will, for a year, realized how crappy it was and went back to university. And again, before completion, I decided to leave that and get back into the business world again. So I gravitated to sales. My dad was a real estate agent, and he kind of pushed me into that direction. So I got a job selling cars, and I did that for many years. Went out to Vancouver for a year, worked at a restaurant, came back, and then took it on as a career again, right? And I was really successful in that industry.
Sales,
right?
yeah.
In the sales industry, yeah. So it was good for me, and a part of the story I guess I'm not sharing with everyone today, or even with you, is there was addiction to drugs and alcohol along the way, right? So I had lost my path, and so making the 6 digits a year.
Did you feel you knew your path before you lost it?
I didn't. I don't think I ever really know who I was, or I did at a very young age until the narcotics at, really 13 years old, I think is when I picked up my first drink, right? That kind of took me off the beaten path to wherever it was, and I didn't really know it at the time, right? But now looking back in hindsight, yes, I can see where I faltered and things like this, right? And I can see all the God moments that happened and all of these, right? I mean, I still continually see them every day. It's like the little miracles in life, right? It definitely brings me to a place of gratitude, that's for sure, right? But so yeah, in and through this journey, I had everything, for lack of a better word, and lost everything, And so I went to this rehabilitation center here in Windsor, and I did a 90-day program, and upon completion of that, I relapsed almost right away. 20 days after that, my dad passed away, and without confiding and consulting in anyone, I just found it best that I moved back home with mom, and things got really bad after that point. So she was mourning the loss of her best friend, husband of 44 years of marriage, right? And here I am, this newly recovered, but not really, the blinders had finally just kind of started coming off, and I'm venturing off, and things got hard, right? So I didn't go back to the career job of selling cars. I got a little bit further into my addiction, if you will, right? And Christmas had passed. In February of 2016, I crawled back into this rehabilitation center. They normally do a 21-day tune-up. Mine lasted 90 days. Right? So that's kind of where I finally started surrendering my will to this higher power who I choose to call God, right? So that's kind of where that is for me. And 3 years later, I'm still continuing my journey, right? Trying to put God first place in all of my affairs and all of these things, right? And it's, for me, I get a lot of things from the rehabilitation center that I went to that I actually call a school of life, right? And there's also the big book of AA, which is kind of a script. There's recipes in there to help guide you in and along your process, right? Or your journey, right? It's pretty process driven, right? So I had to basically put 2 feet in order to start accomplishing the things that I want again, and I'm rooted in manifestation and all of these things, right? So yeah.
I wrote down a couple of words there as you were talking, because these are the types of things that I think are key, and they're the types of things that make me believe that you are the mature person that you were meant to grow into, sort of thing, right? And it's because you're talking about hardships. I wrote down the word surrender. I wrote down daily commitments. You didn't say that actually, but what you were showing me earlier in that book you were talking about, there's a daily commitment on the bottom of it. And I actually think that that's an extremely important part about learning to face the difficulties of this world.
Absolutely.
Because I wrote down that hard word is, I don't know about you, but back in the drug days, I was a drug addict myself for a long time as well, and part of my biggest problem with the world is that it was so hard, right? And part of my complaints and my fellow low-life's complaints was that things are so hard, right? Is that no one's complaining that things are too easy, right? No one's complaining that the weather's too perfect, but in general, this is the unrealistic expectation. We were expecting life to be easy, I guess, and we were sitting around moping and angry about it, and you know, I do believe that's kind of at the core of the addiction, is what do you expect from life, and if you don't think that you're getting it, you might actually run to something else, you know. And if you don't think that life is going to be hard, you're in for a strong disappointment. You know,
Absolutely.
if you don't think winter's coming, you're going to be disappointed when winter comes, sort of thing, right? So part of my point in this is I've learned through my own mentors that you only grow through pain, almost period. And we were talking about this earlier, and this is like, well, why do you think all these mega powerful individuals, just that we know, we're not talking about celebrities or anything, but just these super powerful individuals. I don't mean power as in banker power, I mean power as in the power of giving, the power of their aura. They show up and they're a big personality, and those people went through the worst of it from what I know. You know, those people, they were bad people before they faced these hardships, they grew through it. They finally surrendered. I wrote that word down.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree, if you think that's absolutely key to spiritual growth, but I really do.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, that's pivotal. That's one of the biggest things. I needed to absolutely, for myself, surrender my will and surrender all of my control. So I'm basically, at the end of the day, realizing that I have this ego. And for me, the ego is this voice that's in my head that's telling me one day I'm good enough and I'm strong enough, and the other day telling me that I'm not good enough and I'm not strong enough and people don't like me and I'm making the wrong decision. And then within one breath, all of a sudden, yeah, you know what, maybe this is the right decision. You know, that constant, maybe some will say the battle between the good and the evil, or, you know, just that
resistance.
Voice, really. The resistance, thank you. Yeah, and we were talking about that a little bit earlier, right? It's all about that resistance. So you were giving us the example of even passing the chin-up bar that's in your place, that you kind of want to get that exercise in, but as soon as you look at it, automatically your brain goes to, maybe not right now. And all you got to do is just kind of grab on and give it a go, and then it starts to feel good, right? Even setting up all this audio equipment today, we're looking at it, and there's a healthy fear that comes with everything today. It's not a scared fear like it used to be anyway, personally for me, right? We're going, I don't know if I can do it. Now I've evolved to a place that I can look at something at face value and have a healthy fear and going, you know what, I can still do that and it's okay. And I can tell that voice inside my head to go, no, you got this. Like, don't be involved here, voice. Like, I can actually do this, right? But it's always going against the grain. That's a constant.
You have to create a new problem. We created a new hardship by setting up this podcast thing today.
Yeah.
Now we have to actually fulfill it. You know, it's very easy to do nothing, right?
Yeah.
To a point. I mean, you got to get out of bed eventually. It will kill you, right?
Yeah.
But you do have to face the hardships. And so I mean, we're out there promoting health. You know, we're out there promoting cell phone towers and everything like that. And a lot of the comments that I get, again, are things like, almost along the lines, I translate them to, shouldn't this be easier, you know? Shouldn't we have a world that doesn't have chemtrails in the sky or whatever it is? Well, that's an unrealistic expectation. You know, these are variables that are outside of your direct control. Did I step too far out from that?
That's your truth, my friend.
You know,
it resonates, right?
So the surrendering was one of the big problems that I had actually with the 12-step thing originally. You know, I didn't go clean using the 12-step. I think partially because of that specific, because in that program they say, well, you can't actually achieve this unless you do surrender to a higher power, you know. And I was an atheist, and that doesn't resonate with me. So, you know, I had to get there on my own eventually, though. That, you know, you're not the apex of this thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you think you are in control, there is another unrealistic expectation for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the 12 steps, right? So that really resonates with me because I graduated with this 12-step process kind of engraved in my brain, right? And that's the thing that started to change for me, but it started with step 1. So the first step really is admitting you're powerless over drugs and alcohol, and your life has become unmanageable.
That's the lie of the addict, right? I can quit anytime.
Absolutely. That's that voice, that's that ego, right? Telling you, oh yeah, no, but just one more, you don't really have a problem, right? That's that. Yeah,
I'm in control, right?
That's the concept. I'm in control. Yeah. Exactly.
Just $800 at the casino.
And we were just talking about submitting that control. So that's submitting, and your consciousness, if you will. My ego is in control, and I do not want that to be in control anymore. So what I like to do is, I feel alcoholic or not, diagnosed or not, A type, B type, C type, or type 1, type 2, type 3, whatever it is, wherever you are in your journey, or whatever it is that you feel you want to qualify yourself as, or label yourself as. Step one is really admitting I was powerless over my ego, and that life has become unmanageable, because we all have it. So when I just change those two words, instead of drugs and alcohol over to ego, I feel that it resonates with more people when they really can digest what ego is. Because a lot of people think that ego, in and through my journeys anyway, in conversations with people that I've had, are, oh, ego, I'm not cocky, I'm not arrogant. That's where they go with ego, but they don't really understand that ego really is just that voice that should be telling you the difference between right and wrong, but what it's really telling you is you can do it, you can't do it, right? And this ego is, the ego is not your friend, basically, at the end of the day. The ego is all about serving self. So what I've learned in and through my journey is, like you were commenting on, love and being selfless and giving love to others is really what that is. So as soon as I can smash my ego in and through this process and going, don't make it about you, make it about the other person, I in turn become happy, joyous, and free, right? But it was going against the grain in a really, really severe way. My brain was like a computer, and it was programmed in this one reality. So I like to use this example. I was using it last night, speaking to you, I think, about it. So here's a PC, and you're hardwired this way, and here is a Mac, and the Mac is configured this way. They don't really compute with each other. So I was living a Mac way of thinking, but I needed to be living a PC way of thinking. So it was programmed over here in Macland. And what had to happen was I needed to surround myself with other Macs and start speaking these languages, and then finally I started resonating with this whole language, right? And going, okay, these people are like-minded, they did the same things that I did, or they understand what I'm going through, and I can finally open up for the first time and talk to them about the way I feel, right? And then there's all these people in PC land going, hey man, the grass is maybe a little bit greener over here, right? So I had to start unprogramming myself and thinking Mac and trying to think of myself as more of a PC, right? So in this example, the ego is Mac, right? And PC is not ego.
The higher self.
Right? The higher self, yeah. So I'm trying to achieve this, but I didn't see it because I was hardwired. So I had to start unprogramming this and getting over here and making them kind of synergize together. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Does that resonate?
I believe so. I don't know if you get into the point where your hardware is, we think we're hardwired into, certain whatever realities, and then you're absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It was all the choices that brought me to this point. I basically hardwired myself. I thought I was the victim. I thought things were always happening to me, right? So I would go into things like self-pity. I didn't even know what self-pity meant. I know they were two words. Putting them together, I was blind to those words. It's like those words were PC.
Give us some examples of victimhood. And how, because most people don't even really notice that they're acting like a victim.
So I'll give you an example of, me and my brother are really close today, right? But before, he was 7 years older than me, right? So we grew up in the same house, but being that far in age, I almost felt like I was an only child growing up in some way. That's what my brain was telling me, right? So my brother was in this distant future, or almost this unattainable human that is in my life, right? And I knew he was my brother, but that was kind of it. And so I guess I had some sort of resentment to that, and I didn't even know, but it was it was me. I don't really have an older brother, although he's there, but it's not really. And I didn't even really want to face that stuff, so I bottled that stuff up big time. And I didn't even know it was a problem. So there's the programming of me just closing up, and I'm all in it by myself and feeling alone, right? And so when I got into this rehabilitation center, I remember sharing that in my group, and my group leader was like, well, what was your part in that? And I'm like, my part? What do you mean? And he's like, your part. And I'm like, this does not compute.
Your responsibility.
I am not understanding what you mean. What about my part? I'm the victim. I was the one that didn't have the connection with my brother. And he goes, but what was your part? And I started getting a little bit angry. I'm like, what do you mean? What was my part in it? That doesn't make sense to me. Just like self-pity didn't make any sense to me, right? And he goes, why didn't you just talk to someone about it? And I was like, why didn't I talk to someone about it? And that's when I had this epiphany going, oh my God, my part in it. And I went from victim, woe is me, to, oh my God, I was in control of all of it the entire time. I was letting things happen to me. But I actually had a choice. And that was really my first awakening. Like, that was like the biggest slap in the face. And then for me, like, I'm even like, right now, because it even feels good to go back to that space. Like, I'm actually getting chills right now, right? Because that was the biggest thing. That was almost like the pivot point for me to really begin my journey into this more enlightened place that I choose to be living in today, right? Because I do have this choice. I can go and live back in Macworld, but I keep Macworld at a. I'm a big Mac fan, by the way. Everyone is just. I'm using this analogy, right? So
they're two different. They're completely. I had to try and set up the audio on this Mac, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah,
it can make you feel stupid kind of quickly if you don't know the other operating system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And which can also be kind of overwhelming about actually becoming the X addict, right? This is part of the fear and all these embarrassments and pains involved in learning a new system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to look foolish on a Mac for a minute.
There you go.
Right? You just have to be willing to accept it, accept that pain, you know, surrender to the whatever, not just the higher power, but the idea that you don't have to be perfect tomorrow. You know, I don't need to know how to drive that Mac right now. I've just picked up the mouse for the first time.
You got it. In the AA book or in some of the literature, and you go to the AA meetings and so on and so forth, but they say it's progress, it's not perfection, right? Don't take yourself so seriously. It's okay. Take it a day at a time.
This isn't going to be a perfect
Slow
podcast.
it down. Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely not. And that's okay.
You can provide a lot of value.
It's going to be whatever
perfect.
it's going to be. Yeah.
You can spend your whole life trying to do something perfect and not end up not even doing anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of artists who never get anything done because they're trying to make everything perfect, right?
You got it.
You just gotta let go of it. The most successful artists scribble on a piece of paper because of the confidence, you know. I don't know if it's appropriate to continue to keep using these key words, but it took me so long to understand surrendering. You know, it took me so long to understand faith and acceptance.
Yeah.
And you know, I still encounter it in real life with people that I really interact with, and real fears will come up, and they'll say, "Well, what if?" And to me, what if is a fear that doesn't exist because I've surrendered to the outcome beforehand.
Yeah.
Right? I've accepted the good and the bad.
Yeah.
In sales, you know, I was taught to sit down with somebody and have zero expectations about how it's going to go. And your goal is not to sell a product. Your goal is to handle every single concern that the person sitting next to you has, as honestly and competently as you possibly can.
Mm.
And that is what it should be, right? What information do you want? Let me get it for you, right? What about concerns about competing products? Let me get it for you, right? This is what I was taught. And when you do just sit down like that, people do buy it. You know, it's not just sales, but it's because they can see your honest intention, I believe. You know?
That's right. They feel comfortable.
I wrote down the ego and the higher self as you were talking about it because I feel it's so key, you know, that all of those things that the victimhood is 100% ego, right?
Yeah.
And the higher self, to me, is already always speaking to us, you know, and it actually becomes easy when you realize that. When you realize that, your higher self already told you not to send that text message, you know, and you just need to learn to listen to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your higher self tells you
gut.
every decision to make.
You got it.
And it is trusting your gut, but it's on a deeper level because you're not trusting your gut. You're trusting that your gut is directly connected to God.
It's like it's a cosmic feeling.
Yeah.
Really.
You have the right answers. You have all the information
Always.
you need. It doesn't mean that you need to not read a book ever. It means that the book that you need to read will be put in your path, regardless of what you do. Right?
You need to have faith and trust that is coming, though.
If you're listening to your ego, you're not going to hear your higher self.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're listening to the resistance, you're not going to hear your higher self that says, just do the chin-ups. It's going to take you 30 seconds. You're going to feel good about it afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've learned to trust in that, but truthfully, I've also on that same level, right? So we're learning to get away from the ego, and I do believe that the total purpose of this world is to kill the ego. It's to achieve an ego death.
Yeah.
And that might not be completely in line, with what everybody's saying out there, but Because that's what it is. When you only listen to your higher self and you really genuinely don't have any fears left, you know, you genuinely have no jealousy, right? You genuinely have no anger towards anybody. You genuinely have no resentment or need for revenge. You have killed the ego. And I believe that is the point in itself. What do you think?
Okay, so while you're speaking about this, something's resonating in me, so I feel like I should share it, right? So when I left the school of life for the second time, I was on welfare. I was taking the bus. I was going and sharing my story with the guys that were on program for the first time, right? So some will call that service work, if you will. This was just me going there, sharing my stuff for me to be able to just dump my stuff out, right? Because this was in the middle of me reprogramming myself. So I needed to learn how to get rid of all of my stuff, and like-minded people were receptive to this, right? And they were able to dump their stuff back on me. So like when I dump my stuff on you, it's not yours to hold, but you hear it and it dissipates, right? And you're able to do that with me too. So that's the healthiest way to do it, I believe, and through my experience anyway, right? So going to an AA meeting or a CA meeting twice a day, taking the bus with $2 in my pocket, going down to the riverside and reading, I discovered A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, right? And so the I am, which he speaks of in this book, which is the ego, and letting that dissipate, realizing it for what it is, and not allowing that to control you, right? That voice. Because what is that voice? What is consciousness? Okay, it's a whole other talk for another time. But I started to learn how to look at myself as an entity and then kind of look to myself, right? Like pull myself out of myself and go, okay, what direction would you give that person if it wasn't you? Because my ego was like me. But when I'm outside and the third person looking at me, it would be like, oh no, them, right?
Alex, as somebody who has been able to get what you want in life, where does it get you to say me, and serve me? Where does that get you?
Well, it didn't get me very far. I mean, it didn't keep me happy, joyous, and free, like I was speaking about a little bit earlier, right? I started gaining material things in my life when I was making it about me. But the funny part now in retrospect, looking back at it, is I was in a service industry where I was making it about others, but it was for material gain. Really, at the end of the day, I wouldn't have been there
to make the sale for yourself, not for the customer.
I was, so there were selfish reasons there. I did do it selflessly a lot, and this is why I was successful, but at the end of the day, I was doing it just because it was the thing to do. I wasn't doing it of my own free will. It's because I was like programmed to do this. You need a job, and I didn't realize I even had this problem. I was this functioning addict or this functioning alcoholic because I didn't do it at work. I was there, I was providing a service for people, but again, the monetary gain came, right? So just to get back to where I just left off on the whole, I was on welfare, reading Eckhart Tolle, going to meetings, getting out of myself, not making it about me, literally clearing $717 a month from making over $100,000 a year. It was the happiest I had ever been in my entire life, because I had completely surrendered my will in my life over to this higher power of my understanding, right? This was a part of the growing for me, you know? The second step actually talks about coming to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to some sort of sanity. Because I thought I was crazy. I actually thought I was going crazy. So coming back to the second step, coming to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity, that's just coming to believe that something greater than myself. So I guess again, in retrospect, in hindsight, did I think I was God? Because I grew up in this faith-based religious family, right? So there was God there, and I saw all the love, and it always resonated. But as I grew and things started happening in my life and resentments started building in against even like my dad or my brother or my sister or my mom, people that I loved, and I didn't even really know what resentment meant, but I would just swallow these feelings, right? So resentments naturally started to occur, but I didn't even know that that is what was happening, right? The drugs and the alcohol became my medicine. That was my medicine. I had this rehabilitation center I went to started with this gentleman called Father Paul Charbonneau, right? And I'll talk about him in length at some other point, but his definition of the alcoholic was the inability to give or receive love. So that totally sums it up for me. That I was unable to give any sort of love because I was serving self, and love really is a selfless act, right? So I didn't see that again. I didn't see it at all. So I had to come to believe that this power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I started to realize that I wasn't God and I wasn't in control, because when I had my hands on the reins and I was in control of things, sure, I could kind of get my way, but I wasn't spiritually sound. I didn't have this peace, joy, and freedom again. It was me wanting to be in control, and as soon as someone came into my realm that I couldn't manipulate, I'm like, yep, nope, you're next, or who's next, kind of thing, like push them to the side. I felt like I could turn on and off a relationship like this, and it did not bother me one bit, not one bit, because my ego was telling me that you're a good person, you're a caring person, you're a nurturing person, right? And I was, but it was a character that I was playing. It was a role. I didn't like to thine own self be true. I did not know. I was so far off the beaten path. Like, the drugs and alcohol were winning the battle. The ego was winning the battle. Straight up.
There's a very minor fear of mine that this will go over a lot of people's heads, and people might be like, really? They chose to just sit here and talk about God the whole time or something like that? We're not talking about Bible or anything. I'm not religious, by the way. And I was raised very slightly, but...
And this isn't about religion for me either. It's just me... For me, on my side, painting the story of where it came from, right, and how far off the beaten path I got. But I'm grounded in faith today, and there's, again, more stories for that moving forward.
This is the reason I wanted to start with it, though. We're getting known for health and for cell phone towers and art, and to me, none of that stuff matters. Without this grounding first. And so much of the complaints, let's say complaints that we deal with, that you would deal with in sales, that I would deal with in my version of sales that I do, this is literally just ego objections and excuses. It does becomes annoying enough to get on a mic and start speaking about lifestyle and spirituality and stuff. Just like, what would the world be like if everybody understood, that the perfect outcome was in order? Do you think you would get objections in sales anymore? I don't even think bad companies would exist anymore. They wouldn't even be able to.
Agreed.
And then literally it would actually only be which vehicle is actually best for my needs. There wouldn't be any confusion about quality or anything like that.
And that was the price. And if you wanted one upgraded, this is the price. There wouldn't be any sort of haggle either. It's just, it would be what it was supposed to be.
And of course, there's no perfect world where there's one car for everybody, right? So this dynamic, I think, has to exist everywhere, right? And let me veer off a little bit here too, because we're talking some existential stuff here, about this is pretty much right to the core of the meaning of life and everything like that, and a lot of people do expect,
the way we see it.
A lot of people do expect this perfect world, right? Where everybody drives the same car or anything. I'm not talking about socialism, but understanding that the work will never stop is really, really key. We were talking about winter earlier, understanding that the point is not the vacation, right? And in the health business, we talk about the fact that most of the longest lived people in the world live 2, 3, 4 generations under one roof. You will never ever get to stop working when you live with 4 generations in one roof, right? And this is again the hardships, the unrealistic expectations, but the spirituality being behind the core of this. Because if you don't understand these basics, why are you even buying a car? Or even nutrition, right? Why should somebody change their life? Why should somebody conquer diabetes?
I'm comfortable where I'm at. It's working for me.
Why should somebody paint a picture? What's the point?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'm good. I've got my whole thing set up here. Like, I don't
going
really
to the
need
materialism thing, right? We're talking about the journey. We're talking about the ego. We're talking about the higher self. I used to produce art thinking that the art mattered. Not realizing that it was about myself that mattered. It was about the process that mattered, and it's not about having fun while you're working. It's about doing a purposeful work, and all these things come along with it, and the fulfillment comes along with it. It doesn't come from completing a piece of work, although it feels good to complete a piece of work.
Sure, we get dopamine.
The progress is the constant progress is the key, and we shouldn't really need to struggle to supply that.
Yeah, it's all about the process, right? Like your journey in and through it. So is life.
Well, when you're living life in this way, basically, I walked around with you a little bit today, and even within moments, we accomplished a few things. Number one, you reached out to a man on the street who, probably could have used the help that you give him, and I don't even think he was completely aware of what just happened, right? But that small action alone would be enough for me, for my personal fulfillment in my day, to say that if I went to work, I didn't make any sales today, I spilled my coffee all over myself, all that would be irrelevant because you touched that one human being, you know.
That's the real life, right? The random acts of kindness when you don't need any sort of credit for it, because you know, like for me, I'm created in an image, and I'm trying to live this humble life, and so if I can do a random act of kindness throughout the day, I don't go ahead and talk to people about it. I just do it because it feels good, right? And I know I don't want to say the next right thing to do, but I definitely know it's not the next wrong thing to do, and I'm okay with that.
So even with the art is kind of what I was getting at, is there's a lot of ego involved in art, obviously. You know, you could produce images that in your mind, whether it's the back of your mind or you're aware of it, you know, you're producing so that other people look at it and they're impressed by you, right? This is a purely the ego, you know, materialism statement. Whereas if you sit down and say, what could I draw that would make somebody think? What could I draw that would make somebody inspired? What could I paint that would look nice in somebody's living room? Just, you know, the purpose is outside of you. Those feel way, 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 way better, right?
Yeah.
That's more sort of like commissions of what I'm talking about. But even if someone was like, let me pay you to make this painting, and you're like, let me make the most awesome painting I can make. Yeah. You know, it's the wrong idea. That's the ego. The higher self is telling you to serve the others, is to give them what they want.
That's right. That's right.
It's not, if it's a portrait, it's to automatically, you know, bring out the best in them, not the best in you, if that makes sense. There's a lot of people, you know, again, whatever, art, sales, all of these things, you know, where the objective is to make the sale for the self, you know, make the art for the sale. That's one of the worst, you know. But I hope there's other examples outside of life and business life, you know. But I think
there are so many.
I think a lot of that is extremely important too, though. You know, people's identities is caught up in what they physically do. Mm-hmm. I got a question yesterday, you know, on the Instagram about, you know, do I think you work too hard or something like that? Do you think there's such a thing as too hard of work? And I'm saying, well, when you find your purpose, that's not even a question. You know, it's completely irrelevant, and the fulfillment comes along with that work. Yeah. When that work is completely geared towards giving.
Yeah, I go into my job now, so I'm the general sales manager of a new car franchise, right? So I go into work and I make it about the end, obviously, because we need to be selling cars to provide a lifestyle for myself and the employees and everyone else, right? But I go in there more in the mindset to help the people in this infrastructure that are working with me. I always like to say with me, but directly under me, like my sales staff and whomever else, right? To accommodate the people that are coming in to the dealership to get what they need and or want, right? So before, pre-recovery, I guess it was more like I need to go in there and do my thing and make money and I'm functioning and this is what I need to be doing. And then almost going into the rehabilitation center more the second time, and then coming out of it and finding myself slowly pulling myself out of the matrix, I guess, or not pulling myself, but life is, right? And I start to get more realization of this is truth and this is truth, and deprogramming myself again from Mac world over to PC world, right? I was able to have the opportunity to accept this position, but now I come into it with a new set of glasses on, right? Like a new pair of glasses. So now I'm truly being of service to the people that are working with me and the people that are coming in. So I like to use this analogy with people, and it kind of breaks the ice almost right away. So like sales training 101, people are coming in with a brick wall, and it is your job as the salesperson to try and start breaking down this brick wall, right? But that again is just a perception thing. It's a preconceived notion that I was taught at a young age as a young salesperson, right? Going, oh, this is going to be the thing and it's your job to take it down. So now I went, all right, so that's what I was taught. So this is what I manifested and this was my reality and this is what I thought I needed to do. There's no brick wall. It's imaginary, right? I was taught this, and so I put that into the computer program, my brain.
That's combative almost, right? You're going to fight the customer.
Exactly. So instead, Now I come from a place of love and empathy and compassion and all these things. And so when I welcome someone, I'm like truly welcoming them to like into my reality, the dealership, whatever, right? But it's actually warm and it really means something. So hey, welcome. Thank you so much for coming in, spending your time with us, because I understand now that time is the most valuable thing that we have. You can't replace time. Once time is gone, you've lost it, and it's not coming back. So I know that these people are coming in, investing their time. I respect that for what it is, so I want to give them as much value as I possibly can in the allotted time that they've decided to spend with me. And I'll let people know that right from the get-go. Hey, look, I really appreciate you actually coming to spend your time. And I'll tell them, or I'll explain to them, like, I know we can't get time back, so let's be as efficient here as possible. I'm sure you have work to get back to, your kids to tend to, or whatever it is that you have going on in your reality. Get it. Allow me the opportunity to truly be of service to you. And this is all this is. I'm a human being, you are a human being. You are coming in here to buy this material object here on this lot that in actuality, none of us really own. Okay? This car manufacturer made this thing and plopped it on the ground.
Buying it on
and
credit.
now the banks really own all of these things. And I tell these people this, I like, so you're coming in going, hey, can we have that thing? And I'm like, well, fill out this piece of paper and I'll ask the bank that you're probably, already have a relationship with. So I'm going to say, hey, Bob Smith, can he have this? Here's the piece of paper that he signed. And the bank goes, yeah, he can have that. He's good. And I go, hey, Bob, they said you could have it. So they're basically taking your credits, Bob, and just going bloop and plop them over. So you have this agreement. That's all this is. So I try and take down the whole smoke and mirrors or the mirage of the whole experience with these people. And right away, they're like, whether they see that or not, they're like, this guy's legit. He just painted this real story. And it's because it's the truth. Right? The truth resonates as truth. So people naturally gravitate to that. So I don't have to break down a wall. I just have to speak truth, because that is actually truth. Right? And it resonates with people, and that's the best part of it. So like you were saying, going into a job and having to work and whatever, it's not like that for me. I'm just going in there and I get to play the education game all day long. Right? And it's beautiful. And I love it.
Alex, I think it's so great that we're able to talk about life and God and stuff referenced around a car lot. I think it's great too, because I actually wrote down too, one of the things that I find interesting about you is that you're such a spiritual person. And when I met you, I mean spiritual, I mean the aura, right? I met you, we both went, wow. And as you do when you meet these other, vibrant individuals, you were delivering pizzas at the time, right?
Making pizzas.
Making pizzas, not even getting to deliver them and get tips.
Yeah.
Making them. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
Gluten all over you and everything.
It was high gluten content, actually, in this specific...
So that's a low situation, but you had come from a high situation earlier. We were able to resonate on that level. You could see that you had been around the block, But now, we're a couple of years later here, and I'm at your place, and you're back in car sales. Now, some people might find this weird, like, so you achieve at least some of an ego death, we think. It's hard to say that I've achieved a complete ego death or whatever, but
sure.
You achieve a next level of spirituality and choose to sell cars. And some people might see that as a contradiction, and I don't even want to focus on cars, but even just the fact that it's sales. And when you and I talk, or I bet when you talk to other salespeople as well, it's crazy how well we get along with each other, because we know how to agree with people, and we know how to accept people, and we know how to, and just to even further this car lot thing, you weren't even there when I went in yesterday, and I could tell that you had influenced that environment because I was extremely comfortable when I went in.
Good.
Right? And I was not even looking for a car at all. I found myself looking at a CX-9, contemplating whether this is the right car for me. Realistically, and this is not a situation that would happen on most car lots, which is, I think most people would run right away. I've been chased away by certain salespeople.
Yeah.
To choose to go back into sales. Why did you choose to go back to sales?
Okay,
you could have gone into something else.
I didn't choose it. It chose me. And this is what I mean by that. So I have, I like to call them God moments, but little things that open in along the way that I'm aware of today. If you don't believe in God or any of these things, if you don't want to accept that, this is my truth and this is what resonates with me. So this is why I say it, right? Again, God to me is a higher power of my understanding. So it's mine, it's not yours, it's not yours, it's not anyone's, it's mine. Okay? So, I was working at a granite shop in Windsor, Ontario for about a year, and I was doing marketing and advertising and sales and their IT stuff and all of these things, right? So it was in a part of a part of my journey, right? The man that was my employer that owned, the building and bought the stone, and again, going back to the whole banks owning everything. But anyway, this man that I worked for was there for me, and we were friends from my previous life as a car salesperson, right? And so he was nice enough to give me an opportunity to be there, and it kind of gave me it helped ground me and brought me back into the whole, okay, I think I can function in this environment again. It was a non-commission based environment, which made me feel comfortable because I didn't want to get back into the whole commission based structure, because in and through my training over the 12 years that I had sold cars, I got to learn about the 4 major personality types, and it is a fine line, and guiding people in the right direction and also manipulating them into the areas that you want them to go, right? And I didn't want to live that life again, right? And I didn't think that I could, so being at this granite place helped me interact with human beings that came in without, I need to make this sale because I'm making a commission and this is the only way that I'm going to eat, right? I was paid a decent wage, and I was able to actually lead with my heart and get them what they actually need or want sometimes. But I was really able to guide them in the right direction selflessly. It was all about them. I wasn't going to make any money. I wanted the company to make money, obviously, but I was doing their best interest was my best interest, right? And I used to say that when I was a car salesperson growing up, your best interest is my best interest, and I meant it, but at the end of the day, I was going to get paid. Now I was on a salary. So their best interest was my best interest, and there was no commission clouding me or any of this kind of thing, right? So that was beautiful. So the long answer to your short question is I had contemplated getting back into the sales arena on the car side of things, right? And there are many things in between that I dabbled with and tried, and like the real estate and so on and so forth. But I gave the dealer principal a phone call. This particular gentleman owns 26 franchises, and I was really successful in the past, and I was the only sales guy, I believe anyway, in the group that was able to sell all of these franchises. I had a really good following. My clients were really loyal to me. And so he gave me the opportunity. I think I was 31 or 32 years old, and I was almost like a kid in a candy store selling all of these things, right? So again, rehab happened, Dad passed away, and I left it. And 3.5 years later, I called him and was like, hey, I was thinking about maybe getting back in the industry. I think I'm ready. What do you think? And 2 days later, he offered me the general sales manager job at this car franchise here in Windsor, right? So it wasn't.
So can I say Mazda?
Yeah, I guess. Okay, Mazda, Windsor Mazda, come on up.
Come on.
So
this part of it. I mean, no shame at all.
Okay.
Right?
There's no shame. I just didn't want to selfishly plug in anything, but it's a part of the Raffi Auto Group, right? And
you're not Mazda. It's not your company.
No, it's not. Yeah. So Mr. Raffi worked really, really hard to set up this beautiful conglomerate for all of us to work in and help people in, and we can provide for our families in and through this whole thing, right? So again, this is me seeing it with a different pair of glasses on. Pre this, I could have seen it as, oh, it's a conglomerate and it's this and it's that, and I could be negative, but today I choose to see it as a positive. But getting back to it, I called him 2 days later. I was appointed this thing, and it was cool and it was beautiful. So I didn't really choose it. It just kind of opened up. So when God opens up a door, I confide and I consult and I discuss all of the things, and I'm able to again kind of pull myself out of it and look inside and go, am I really truly ready for this? And in between my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my sponsor, my good friends, even my group leader, everyone was like, yeah, you're ready. And so I believe that God speaks through people. So if everyone else is seeing that in me, sometimes I'm also still blind. When I try and pull myself out, third party and looking in, I still can't see things. This is why I'm so open today and talking about what it is that's going on in my life, confiding and consulting with people, because I need that part of it, or else I know that my my ego is there, it's lurking, and it's ready to just go, Alex, 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 Alex. It's all about you, Alex, 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 right? I don't want to be that guy, so I try and stay open. And that's still kind of going against the grain, but the more that I practice that, I can manifest it as my reality, and I perceive it this way, and it becomes much easier, right? So I didn't choose it. It opened up, and I just was given the okay to walk through the door, and so I walked through it.
No, I love it. And in a past life, I might have asked a silly question like, "Do you think you'll be selling cars in 5 years?" I've learned to know that this is just completely irrelevant. But
it's a day at a time, brother.
I want to say a perspective thing too, because especially in sales, and especially in some of the existential things that come up when you enter sales, like what are people going to think of me, right? Like just all types of things. Do I want to become a salesperson? Do I want to be seen as a salesperson? This type of thing. And there's a lot of selfishness, and all of that was obviously about me and my ego and what people are going to think about me, and that's nowhere near the higher self, basically. And then you get the people who are saying, well, why is this person selling this? My question really, has come to be, why is the person coming to the dealership, right? Why would a person walk into a dealership? Why would a person come into our inbox and message us?
Yeah.
Just because they need help. There is no other reason.
That's right.
Right? And even if they came in just to yell at us, I still, in the back of my mind, is that this person needs help, right? And that was behind this interaction. Maybe they realize it by reading it over and saying, that was inappropriate, I'm going to learn from this. But very generally, people come into a car lot looking for help. They need something. They might be scared and intimidated that they're going to get taken advantage of, or that they're going to get something that's not the proper value for them, right? But these are just fears that you can actually handle by being transparent. And I was going to say, forget about cars, it doesn't matter what it is, but even with cars, I walked in yesterday and I needed something. I needed help. My car had a problem. Yeah. Right, and the establishment genuinely helped me, and I will pay them to do it. Right, they will get value from it, and this value exchange, I think, is the key. You do get the value in exchange automatically by giving. It's not that you win every single lottery ticket, but when you have that attitude of giving, you are compensated appropriately 100% of the time.
Yeah, it's the law of the universe. The giving is in the receiving. Like that's a real thing. Believe it.
Whether it's selling cars or flowers, right? People walk into a flower shop looking for something specific as well, right? You think it's a joke selling flowers. Well, so maybe someone died, right? Maybe it's a very important anniversary. Maybe this is your last chance with your loved one, and this person's coming in to get the favorite flower or whatever. It's not to minimize anything. And I actually think through these sort of humbling things, making pizzas, right? The selling cars, me selling nutrition products. I don't like selling products, right? I think, in some way, maybe it's still ego. Some way I should be doing something better, whatever that means. But people come to you for something, and not everybody needs the elephant right now. Some people need a small piece of hope, right? Some people need an idea.
Yeah.
Some people need a friend. They don't need a SIP. They don't need a Mazda.
Yeah.
They need a friend.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe they thought they needed a Mazda today.
It's funny you said that. I had a woman that was a referral. I used to work with her husband, ex-husband now, and said, hey, my ex is looking for a car. She was thinking Mazda. I'm going to send her your number. So she called me, and we sat down, and she was not in a very good spiritually sound place. And her and I had a one-on-one, and we talked for like an hour. And we test drove a car, and she was in the market, but it turned out to be oh my gosh, Alex, thank you for this. I needed it in my life, right? So in and through my recovery and being tied into all the circles, today I'm able to guide people in the right direction and go, hey, there's a group of women over here that understand, or hey, maybe you should seek out this counsel, or I know someone that's a psychiatrist that sits down and does things at a personal one-on-one level. Maybe you should reach out to her, right? So for me, deep down inside, like that's the goods, that's the real life. Being of service in the car industry is one part of it, right? But doing it at that level to help people achieve spiritual awakening again, and just defeating the demons, bashing that ego, helping them get out of things like depression and anxiety, all these things that I suffered with, that I had, that again, my medicine was the drugs and the alcohol that I needed to just sustain what I thought was a normal life. I'm able to do that even in and through this dealership sometimes. So this woman came to me and we got this good relationship. She actually didn't end up buying a car because in and through consultation with me, it wasn't the right time for her, actually, right? She wasn't there. And that doesn't mean in a month she won't be, or in a year, or in 5 years, or whatever, but guess what? in and through, you know, the grace of God, when she is ready, she will come back to me because of this relationship, this rapport, this foundation that we now have. She texted me the other day and said, Alex, again, thank you so much. If it's okay with you, I know we didn't do a car deal, but I would love to just continue on this relationship if I ever need to talk. And absolutely, I am here.
The ego would be disappointed in not making the sale, though, right?
In one light, yes, if you want to say that, but I don't want this.
The higher self is satisfied by helping someone at any level.
I don't want this to sound like it's ego, because it's not pride. It's like, actually, I'm good because I've lived in this industry. I've done the constant follow-up every 3 to 6 months with people that eventually bought after 3 years. But I was creating, again, the foundation and showing them I actually cared, and all it was my contact management system. Reminder call for this, or hey Siri, remind me to call this person in 3 months. That simple. So me taking that digital step helped me in and through this journey of building and creating this rapport, and this person's like, wow, this person actually does care about me. Every 3 months, every 5 months, hey, friendly follow-up call. I'm not trying to get you into a car, but just calling to make sure you're still good. Do you have any loved ones that maybe need help? A brother, a sister, a mom, a dog? Anyone looking for a car? Cool. If not, awesome. Friendly follow-up. Let me know when they are. Friendly follow-up. It's Alex. I'm here, right? And so because I've experienced that, that's manifested in my world before, helping someone on this note, like this girl specifically this time around, I know something will come of it. And well, I don't know. We never know. If it does, awesome. If it doesn't, whatever. It's not ego-filled today. I know that I didn't do the next wrong thing. Again, I know that I genuinely led with my heart, and it was good. And this was the fine line I didn't know getting back into the sales arena, if I would thrive in it, because I had all of this empathy and sympathy and all these things in my life this time around, right? I thought I would maybe be too weak, for lack of a better word, to get into it and get people to where they need to, right? Because I was a good closer. I knew how to get people through the process and get them signing the piece of paper at the end of the day, like the gentle hand on the back. You know, no, we're good, and I'm guiding them through the process. And this is what I was an expert at doing it. This is what I did, and it was good, and it was good. And now I get to do it in with again a new pair of glasses on, and it's so much more fulfilling, right? So no, the ego wasn't telling me. Well, maybe for a minute, yes, that would be a flat out lie. Yeah, a little bit of me was like, damn, why didn't she buy that car? Oh well, it's okay, right? So it is gonna be there. Like, it's not ever gone, okay? It's progress and it's not perfection. It's never gonna be perfection, right? There will always be that, oh man, you messed up. Maybe if you did this, or maybe how about that, or whatever.
So
and we need to go through that
jealousy,
to learn, right?
Each little piece of disappointment is a reminder.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that you do have an ego. It's a reminder that you do have to pay attention to your higher self. It's
Thank you.
If you didn't have that, the people who can't feel pain don't live long.
If you can't admit that, then you're living in fantasy. You're absolutely right. And you just saw it. I wanted to think, oh no, it wasn't. And like, yeah, no. When you take look outside of yourself, man. Really? Oh yeah, no. You're absolutely.
You're allowed to recognize that feeling, and you're allowed to conquer it.
And so I'm allowed to admit that on camera or via podcast or with another human being, going like, yeah, okay, maybe that was bullshit, but it wasn't genuine bullshit. It just came out. It was ego. It was pride, and then all of a sudden,
disappointed either. You know?
Yeah,
it's only a small bit.
Today I'm able to see where that fault is, and it still comes, but I don't let that own me today. I'm not going to go into self-pity and like, oh my god, I actually had that feeling. You know, I'm a human being. I'm going to have that feeling.
Yeah. Rather than being like, where did I go wrong? You know,
but I'm not
focusing on the failure.
I'm not rooted in it today.
What I was just going to say here too, you were talking about, in sales, you can learn the motions and be successful mechanically, because most people aren't going to look you into your soul, right? They're just going to look at your eyes, basically. When you do get more serious, and especially you're trying to sell a more serious product, a Land Rover versus a Toyota, you're selling the Toyota to the average person, you're selling the Land Rover to the person who's going to look at your eyes and say, do I trust this person, right? So you can learn the hand on the back thing, and you can do it to make sales, but it's interesting that when you come onto the pure intention, you can do the same action, right? The same action that before you were like, if I touch this guy on his back, it's one more thing that will give a positive benefit to our rapport, and unconsciously it will influence him to like me more, and unconsciously it will lead him more towards the sale. Just in knowing that, though, that the human contact is important, you can implement that with genuine intentions, right? You can see somebody who is genuinely in need, and you can know that this person actually needs a physical touch, right? Without using it to manipulate them or anything. I like sales for that, in that it does actually teach you how to be a better person, but my problem is it only teaches you how to do it physically. And I know plenty of people who do that robotically, right? And use that, and they are providing the value to the person, but they're not getting the emotional fulfillment from it because they're concerned about the sale, right?
Yeah. But it's like, I still can find myself being robotic, right? We were talking about it earlier. I'm trying to show my guys this way of like going through the 7 steps of the sales process, right? But it has to be real and it has to be genuine. But eventually, once you start to learn the 4 major different personality types, like you were saying, you know what guy you can do this with, you know what people you can't.
Yeah.
You know what people you're going to deal with who your desk has to be absolutely clean, every pen in its spot, or they're going to go, that guy doesn't even have a clean desk. I don't know if I should do my business here. There's that type of buyer, right? So you start to know these people. So getting back to robotic land, it can happen, right? We just have to be conscious that we aren't going into super program robot mode, and we are human beings that are helping other human beings, right? So yes, it's got to be process driven, right? But at the same time, it needs to be real. It's one person helping another person. This rehabilitation center that I went to it's actually called it's a community. It's Brentwood Recovery Home, and the catchphrase, if you will, or the italics are where people need people.
I would think that's everywhere, but
Exactly my point. It is life. Life is sales. Sales is life. It's all in and one the same thing, really. Where people need people. That's just the thing. I'm gonna get that tattooed on my forehead or something.
maybe not for your first tattoo.
Maybe not. Still tattooless. Oh yeah, you're right.